It has been a minute on this car. And if you guys have watched this channel for a while, you've seen this car a few times. This is the 97 Firebird Formula that I've been working on for two-ish years. And it's been a little while since it's been in the shop here to get some work done. And but we're getting back at it. And today, I'm gonna be working on the brakes. It has no brakes. And I think it's just air. Taking everything apart, putting it all back together, certainly introduced some air in the lines. I did a little bit of quick bleed to it and topped it off, but that pedal just goes right to the floor. So pretty sure it's still got a lot of air in the lines, so we're gonna do a real four-wheel brake bleed. And I'm gonna do it with this super cool tool, Motive Products Power Bleeder. It allows you to bleed your brakes all by yourself. Normally, bleeding brakes is a two-person job. I'm sure a lot of you guys and gals are like me, where you're working in your shop or your garage or your driveway or whatever by yourself. And a brake bleed is hard to do by yourself. You can do it, but to get it all the way, to make sure you get all the air out, it is often a two-person job. Let me show you how this works, and we'll go dive in and see if we can get these brakes working. We last left off with this car. We got everything put back together. We had taken a whole bunch of stuff off, taking the front end off, taking the OptiSpark out and repairing that, and then finally got it running. That video is going to be up here somewhere. Drove it out of the garage here and it had no brakes. And I had brakes. I drove it at one point and it had brakes. So I know the brakes work. So I've introduced some new problem with that whole disassembly, reassembly process. And the most common problem when you do that is you introduce air. Now, there could be some other things. Maybe I didn't hook it up right. Maybe the electronics aren't working. But, you know, it's kind of Occam's razor. Whatever is the most likely problem is probably the problem. For those who aren't familiar, you might be asking, why is air a problem? So the way these brakes work, hydraulic brakes, is fluid. So the system is filled with fluid. So when you push on the pedal, that introduces pressure. And since you can't compress the fluid then pushes the brakes and compresses the brakes instead, and that squeezes the rotors or drums, whichever you have. That takes a lot of pressure, and especially for these big heavy cars. And in the modern era with power assist, it takes a little less pressure, right? You feel that if you drive an old car where you don't have power brakes, you got to really jam on that brake pedal. In a newer car, it's a light touch. You know, there's a lot of science and wizardry in that, but in the end, it's a relatively simple process. If you have air, the air will compress in the system and absorb that pressure instead of having that pressure be applied to your brakes. So we got to get the air out. Generally, this is a two-person job. So one person sits inside, pumps the brake pedal, the other person sits outside and opens the valves and leaks the air out. And you have to do it kind of in concert with each other so that you don't push fluid out and then introduce air back in and make your problem worse. But with a tool like this basically pressurizes, adds the requisite pressure into the system to push the fluid out and replaces the person on the inside pushing the brake pedal to do it. So a quick overview on how this works. This is a little pump, a little hand pump. You fill this, you don't have to fill it, but you put new brake fluid in here. This can be done to either bleed the brakes, or if you have to want to do a full flush, get out dirty fluid and put in clean fluid. But you put in however much fluid you're going to need. So, you know, usually one of the larger bottles of brake fluid would work. I've got a couple of them. You hook this up to your reservoir there on your master cylinder. And it's got a little rubber gasket in here. And so when you pump this, it adds pressure. About 15 pounds, you know, 15 to 17 somewhere. It doesn't have to be exact, but you don't want it to really get too low. Probably you want to let it get below about 10 pounds. You don't want to get too high, because then you risk actually damaging something. And then at each wheel, you use a tube. I use this 3/16 inside diameter fuel line, like from like a lawnmower tractor fuel line, and just a water bottle. You can use whatever you want, but make sure whatever it is good and clean, so you're not introducing a bunch of contaminants into your brake system. We'll drill a hole in the top, the size of this tube, and another little kind of air release hole so we don't get a lot of pressure built up in here. It allows it to flow a little better. It's not required, but it does help. You hook this hose up to a little valve that's on the backside of each caliper, and as you pump the brakes, in this case we'll pump it with the pump, it's going to push stuff out that line, and we're trying to do is get all the air bubbles out. Typically with any car, you start at the farthest caliper, farthest distance from your brake system. So what does that mean, brake system? Well, in this case, because all the brake system is right up here inside the engine compartment, it's the farthest from here, which would be the right rear, passenger side rear wheel. Some of these cars, especially like larger SUVs, seems like we'll have this ABS unit somewhere in the middle of the car or even in the back of the car. So in that case, the brake system that you want to get some distance from is that ABS unit. So if your ABS unit's in the back, then start in the front, whichever side is the farthest away. And then work your way close. The manual in this car does say to bleed the ABS module first. So we're gonna follow those instructions. We'll start bleeding right here and we'll see what happens here, and then we'll work our way to the passenger side rear, and then driver's side rear, and then passenger side front, and then driver's side front is the closest, and that'll get us all 4 wheels. Let's get our catch can kind of put together and we'll get started. All right, so we don't get plastic shards down in our catch can. I have to clean it out. I'm just gonna put this in here and drill a hole just about the size of the tubing. It doesn't have to be exactly. In fact, if it's a little bigger, it'll make it a little easier, and I'll show you how we keep that. You just want to keep that tube from falling back out. Well, that didn't work very well. All right, well, let's cut a little air hole in there. That's just as the fluid goes in, it pushes air out. It doesn't get bound up. All right, so now we'll feed this through here. We want to feed enough, I should have got more line, or a smaller bottle, that it will go all the way to the bottom, or at least into some fluid. So you want it to be, you're gonna put fluid in the bottom of the bottle, and you want that tube to be down into the fluid. So when it pumps air out, if anything, any kind of back pressure sucks back up the tube, it's not gonna suck air from the bottle in, it's gonna suck clean fluid. And this tubing comes all coiled up, and it's a pain to get straight. So I'm gonna heat this tubing up just a little bit with a heat gun and get it to settle down a little. Well, it'll go in nice and straight. And then I'll put a zip tie around the tube so it can't pull back out of the cap. Be careful you don't melt it. So because this gun can get pretty hot, and it'll actually just melt that tubing. So it's already kind of relaxing a little bit. Let's see if we can straighten this out now without it. What I'm trying to do is get it to just be nice and straight. Straight as it will go anyway. I'll keep it good and straight, and then when it cools, it'll keep that shape. So we should be able to put this down on the bottle, and that'll sit on the bottom. And then I just want to see where that's supposed to be. That's screwed all the way down. It'll be kinked up at the bottom. I'm going to give some space down there, because I'm always going to have fluid in it. So let's say right about there. So let's mark that with something. Just so when I take this cap back off, I don't lose where the line is on the tube. All right, so move that up a little bit, and I'm gonna put a zip tie just underneath that line, about the thickness of the cap. It can be a little bit less, or sorry, a little bit more, not less. Hard to get less than the thickness of a cap. It can be a little bit more. Just to get close. Don't tighten this all the way where it's gonna crimp the tube. You just want it to stay on the tube, so that it'll grip it tight. There we go. We'll just clip that off. So now, when we put it in the bottle, that tube can't pull back out. We'll put a little fluid in here, maybe about, I don't know, a quarter or a third of the way up, just to make sure that it never comes out of the fluid. And we'll put some fluid in our power bleeder. A little word of warning. Brake fluid's kind of corrosive, especially to paint. Now, this bumper and fender I've got to repaint anyway, so I'm not as worried about it here as I would normally be. But you do want to be careful with fluid so that you don't get it on your vehicle. let's open this up. This hose, speaking of, got a little bit bound up. It's like a rubber band that won't, just keeps winding back up. I don't know how much air I've got to bleed out, so I'm going to dump this whole thing in. You probably don't need to dump an entire one in, but just to be safe, I'm going to do that. Tighten that down. I'm just going to set this somewhere where it's not going to fall. Okay, that's on there. Now we will pump this up.
We want to pump you up.
They do make one that a little bit nicer, a little bit higher end model that works with a air compressor, and so it maintains a constant pressure. But they're a little pricier, and this works just fine. Just takes a little while to get it up to pressure initially. Whew. A long while. Okay, so we're right about, I'll give it a couple more palms, make sure we're above the 15 mark. There, we're about maybe 16 pounds. Okay, let's set it up there. So the lines we want to bleed are right here. So that's our starting point. That's probably good for now. So let's put this in here. The nice thing about this size line is it will fit pretty snugly over these fittings without needing an extra clamp or something on them, because they're a little hard to get on, but once you get them on, you're okay. And then just crack that one open a little bit. I see some air bubbles in there. Here we go. Just didn't get it loose enough. You just want to get it loose enough that you have easy flow, but not so loose that it loses seal and it starts leaking out of the fitting. So no more air bubbles in there. Get that tightened up. Disconnect it with the with a bottle below, so gravity pulls the fluid back down into the bottle instead of spilling out all over the place. All right, and then we'll do this one next. The manual actually says do the bleeder, but there appears to be two bleeders here, so I'm doing both just in case. I don't know if you can see it on camera. They're very small. There's tiny, tiny little air bubbles. Okay. We're good up here. So now we'll go to the back. Before I go, I'm going to pump this back up. Make sure I've still got enough fluid. I'm still good there. And get some more pressure here. Okay. I kind of make it a habit of every time I crack a bleeder, when I'm done with it, I come back here and check the pressure. All right, so I guess I should have said this at the beginning. It does, obviously, you gotta take the wheels off to get behind them. It's really hard to do, near impossible with the tires on. So you can, if you can jack it up and you can crawl underneath, but it's just so much easier if you just get the wheels and tires out of the way, because the bleeder's gonna be back here behind the caliper. By the way, I think I said this in the very original video, when I first got this car. This has the two chrome wheels that need some work. Like that one's really clear coat's fading off that one. This one's not too bad. And then it has these two blue wheels. These are the would be the 30th anniversary edition, the 99 Trans Am, the white and blue one with the blue wheels. And again, they need a little work. I don't know what to do with them. If you guys have any suggestions, throw a comment down below, because these actually are commemorative edition wheels and they might have a little value for somebody, and I'd hate to ruin them. They have no value to me, blue. They're got a little bit of corrosion here, pitting of the chrome, And so they probably have to be cleaned up, and I don't know if they could be cleaned up without damaging the blue coating, or if I just like, they're gonna have to be sanded and either powder coated or painted or whatever, clear coated, polish up the chrome and clear coated. I don't know. If you guys are interested, if somebody's interested in one of these wheels or the set of wheels, I only have the two. They're kind of a light blue, but I've seen probably a dozen of those 30th anniversary edition cars over the years. And I feel like the wheels have, every one of them have a different color blue in the wheels, and none of them match the actual blue of the car. But, so I'm not sure that was a great idea, or that particular coating was very well done from General Motors from the factory. But anyway, let me know what you think I should do with these. I can powder coat them, I could sand them and refinish them, paint them, or maybe if there's somebody out there that actually wants the blue wheels, I'd hate to ruin them. So if somebody's interested in them, let me know, and maybe we can make a deal. All right, so you'll find the bleeder valve somewhere back here behind the caliper. Usually it's right up on top, and it has a little rubber cover on top of it. This one's particularly difficult, or being particularly difficult to get on. Why are you being so difficult? Like, the bleeders here are much bigger than the bleeders up there. So, again, let me heat this hose up a little bit, see if we can stretch her out. It's kind of stuck. Okay. Yeah, I think heating that was a bad idea. Now it's kind of loose. Regardless, it doesn't seem to want to open up. So I've got these flare tool wrenches. Let's see if that works any better. It gives a little bit better grip sometimes. But no, it doesn't want to move. Okay, well, that's fun. Let's pop this off for now and give that a little, like I'm going to go around and do all the rest of them, give it a little bit of penetrating oil. So it might just be a little rusty. All right, I'll go over and hit the other three, and we'll let that soak a little bit. We might even throw just a tad bit of heat on it if it doesn't work the next time around. Not too much, because there's a lot of soft parts in here, brake lines and stuff that'll melt really easy. So I'm going to try to do it without any heat. Just let this simmer for about 15 minutes and we'll come back. All right, well, it doesn't want to move. So I'm going to give it a little bit of heat. I'm going to be careful. So I pop the cover off with just grabbed a little pick tool to pull that off so I don't melt that. And that actually was covering up some of the threads. So I hit it with some more penetrating oil. And I'm just going to use this as kind of a heat shield so I don't accidentally melt the brake line. So when you want to heat up the outside, not the fitting itself. Heat up what it screws into. That's anytime you're trying to get a screw or bolt out. You want that to expand a little and see if we can break some of that corrosion loose. It will get awfully hot. Not very much. We'll give it a little bit of a tap. I don't want to tap this too hard. It is aluminum, so just a little. See if we can get around the base of it a little better. I've stripped out the top of it now. Not much to grip there, so I'm obviously going to have to buy new ones. But I don't want to buy new calipers. So I really would like that to come loose. That's too big. It's in a little bit of a crevice, so the wrench won't go all the way on. And the part the wrench is going on is all stripped out. But a small socket might get in there. Let me try that. Oh, that's a 10 millimeter. Well, that might go with a little help. Okay, that's on. Let's see if I can do that without snapping that off. There it goes. Let's close it back off for now. But since it's all jacked up, or this should replace it. Yeah, see, it doesn't want to. Oh, there we go. A little air. That's a lot of air. I wonder if it's introducing air from right here. I think my tube is flawed. I'm gonna close this back up. Yeah, I'm introducing air here. So that's not air coming from here. So I need to fix my tube. That whole heating process was a bad idea. Don't do that. So I'm gonna replace that bleeder screw, and I wanna release the pressure from this so I don't blast out fluid. And something's gonna leak out because it's just gravity, but I don't want it all to leak out. So you wanna release the pressure here, not there. So just unscrew this. There. Now I'll go back in the back and see if we can get that screw replaced. Some will definitely leak. So I bought one of these universal kits because I don't know for sure what size it is. This will be fun. Trying to figure out which one I need and trying to do so rather quickly. There we go. All right, so it's a fine thread. Is that one? That one does it feel like? It feels too small. How about that one? There we go. That's better. There. So now I got that replaced. Let's go back to the actual bleeding. Now with a cleaner fitting. I wonder if I can get this on there easier because it would not go over the other one. But I think it was just that it was so rusty and corroded that it was too it was sticking on the rough edge. So there we go. That's better. Now let's crack you back open. Oh no, let's pressurize it. We're back up to pressure and the power bleeder. Now we'll crack this open. I don't see any air bubbles. So I do think the air bubbles that I saw before I was introducing here with that melted tube. That heat was just too much, so that was a bad idea. All right, so this part I was called good. We probably bled a lot of the air out if there was any when we took the fitting off. Now they don't have to tighten these too much. That was probably part of the problem with that other one too, is it was a little over tightened. So just get it snug. All right, I'll take that off, pour it down in, and we'll move on now to the driver's side rear. So we're on the passenger side front here. The camera died on me on the other side and the rear, but got a little bit of air out of that one, but not much. I was surprised. I thought there'd be more air coming out. So this one's loose now. A little air a minute ago. Not much though, a couple of bubbles. I want to be careful not to loosen these too far, like a quarter turn or so. If you get them too loose, air will suck in around the threads and because it's pressurized, it'll push the air out here and it'll look like you're pulling a lot of air out, but you're actually just sucking in air that you're around the threads and then sending it down the tube. The other one is if you release too far and the 15 pounds of pressure blows the screw out, and then you've got brake fluid spraying everywhere, which is also no fun. So I think this one's good. I'm gonna tighten this one back up. There. All right. We'll go over to the front driver's side now, and that's the last one. Let's get our bottle in. Before I get too far, let me check the pressure, make sure we got enough pressure. A little low. Now we'll crack this one open. Again, there's a little air. Okay. All right, well, that's it. They are bled. Let me see if we can pump the brakes and see if we get some pressure. Let's release pressure here. So pour the fluid back in the container. Get it out of the way. Put our lid back on. I want to check the fluid. Should be full. Yep. Where's my rag? Okay, now let's give her some brake pressure. All right, we got good pressure on the pedal. Let's start it up. All right, well, I'm not sure that's everything, but it is better. You know, outside of the rusty, corroded bleeder valves, this actually would have been really easy. It still only took a few minutes really to do all four wheels and the module up here. So, you know, really simplifies the process. I'll put a link down below for it. It's not terribly expensive and it saves you a ton of time. I don't think, however, that is my entire problem with the Firebird. It did help. There definitely is some pressure in the brake pedal now, whereas it just like flopped to the floor before. But it still doesn't seem to stop the rear wheels quickly, even with just an idle. Just put it in drive and idle, and there's no tires on it. It's just jacked up. Let them spin and stop them. They don't stop very quickly. We'll get this put back together, take it around the property here, and give it a test drive and see if we've got decent brakes at all, and maybe do some more troubleshooting if that doesn't work. There's some shiny fluid over here by the master cylinder, which makes me a little nervous, and I wonder if it has sprung a leak. Maybe an investigation with that. But for now, I'm done. We'll call this good for today. So I hope that helped you. If you want to pick up one of these tools, like I said, I'll put a link down below. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you learned a little something, and we'll see you next time.